Sooner Nation, we are back. And listen, we got a date. Tory Blalock announced he's going to be committing here soon. Oklahoma, they're heading into the spring. This is where Oklahoma starts to pick up some momentum heading into the summer, where they usually get a bulk of their commitments. Today, I'm joined by Jay over at Unfair Sports. Jay, how are you doing today?
What's going on, PG? Let's talk some balls. How's the suitor ball? I'm excited about it.
I'm excited about it too. And I think we got to start off here because Tory Blalock, a guy that has received, at this point, I just got to say numerous predictions because I can't even count. He's set a commitment date for March 29th. It's coming up. There's been a lot of rumors swirling about DeMarco Murray and the whole skebuddle that podcast for Ohio State and Bucknut started with him interviewing for the job, right? But it seems like DeMarco Murray is going to get a commitment here. And I would assume DeMarco Murray is going to get a raise probably after this commitment. So looking at the future of this running back position for Oklahoma, I don't think you probably take another running back here. What's your thoughts on Tory Blalock? Do you think he ends up committing? And do you think we take another running back in this class?
Yeah, I see us getting 2 running backs in this class. We're gonna need it. You gotta have the bodies going into the SEC, right? And your goal is to have the best players possible to be able to compete with the talent there. And so every cycle you should bring in 2 running backs, just so that you make sure you have that depth. We'll have luckily our team is overall young. Like every position, we're pretty young, from mainly redshirt freshmen and sophomores down. We have a majority of the team is in that ranking with a few juniors and seniors here and there. And so that's the good thing for Oklahoma, which we talked about before. 2025 feels like the year that things could really go down. But I see Blalock committing. It feels like he's a heavy Oklahoma lean. I know him and his dad were uber excited about being in Oklahoma. They raved about the visit the last couple times they were here. And now that we've got a date coming up, all the crystal balls are coming in for Oklahoma. So I anticipate those will be accurate. We'll land them on March 29th. Now, the question is, this PG, is who's going to be the second running back to come in here? Now, I know you've had some conversation with some backs or whatnot. I'm wondering, do we get our hands on a Michael Turner, right? Another Texas running back, which is roughly about the same size. Sounds like that there is some, slight lean in that direction. What about was it Byron Lewis, somebody out of Florida that we offered a while back? The question is, who would be the second back that we would take out of this class, or we just go after an athlete and just convert them?
See, and I've kind of thought about that because Riley Wormley was a guy that early on you would have probably thought, hey, this would have been a commit for Oklahoma. I feel like that's going to end up being an Oregon win at this point. Then you've got Demarius Robinson out of Edmond Santa Fe. That's the one that I think if you were to take a second running back, it's probably the most likely. Michael Turner Jr., I'm looking at Baylor, or I know Oklahoma fans don't really want to hear this, Oklahoma State. And then, I just don't see Byron Lewis end up in this class. Demarius Robinson would be the one that I look at and say, that's probably the one. But at the same time, it's, do you give Demarius Robinson a scholarship or do you offer him a PWO plus? For those of you who aren't familiar with that, that's where Oklahoma's pretty much paying these guys scholarship as a PWO, right? They're getting enough NIL money plus all the other NIL incentives that everybody else is getting. So for an in-state prospect where you don't have to pay out-of-state tuition, it makes sense. That's the one that I'd really be watching. But Demarius Robinson's been getting offers from other schools like Arizona State. So I still question if Oklahoma, if they offer him PWO, if that's even intriguing to him, because he could go somewhere else, probably have a better chance at playing significant time and also be on scholarship.
No, I agree with you that, and he's really good. Like we went to the game up there at Santa Fe and watched him play, and I'm just like, who's this little dude running around like Deuce Vaughn, right? Now, we say that about all of them, but he has a mixture of Vaughn and Tariq Cohen, just the way that he's shifty and he's hard to tackle, but he also can hit those holes and he be trying to run into people, man. He's trying to run them over. And so if he's willing to go out there with that type of strength and come here and hit the weight room and be short and strong, I'll take it all day. You never know what you can do with that. I mean, that's something that can be like, once Andy Bass gets healthy, be one of those players that's like a gadget guy. I'm totally down for that.
Yeah, and we almost got ran over by him, so we know he's got some speed. We just stayed on the sideline, and that dude came barreling. And I think the running back position is going to be interesting because going into 2026, you have Jonathan Hatton, but there's other guys in 2026 like Javian Osborne that Oklahoma could go after. So I don't know because I think if Gavin Sawchuk puts up a really good season this year, let's say anywhere between 1,200 to 1,500 yards, I think he's gone to the NFL. I don't know if Javonte Barnes has enough on tape to go to the league. And so that's where I'm like, okay, like, are
No, he
you going
doesn't.
to turn over enough quarter or running backs to really warrant taking 2 scholarship running backs in your recruiting class? Or would you wait till 2026 to take 2? I think that's the real question. And I think it really comes down to how does this staff feel? Because if Caleb Hicks comes out here and he shows out this season, Xavier Robinson, who's the guy you're really high on, shows out, I'm not sure you need to this year. I think this is going to be one of those things where it might be a late eval running back, depending on how the season goes.
Nah, I don't disagree with you there. That would make sense. Also, getting a late eval guy that, I mean, I was surprised that Kay Knighton didn't, try to get his hands in the cookie jar here. But at the same time, I could see Oklahoma saying, "Hey, the next running back we take is going to be more of a PWO status." But I anticipate 2 backs in this class. But at the same time, that would make sense for us to be limited. I know Venables mentioned in his press conference that he wants that this class is not going to be as big as the others, in which we've already started to fill up on what we need. Now they're probably going to be very selective about what players are going to get their hands on and really start building in and building, I guess you could say, the depth that they want on certain spots. And so technically at running back, we do have a lot. We could skip 25, get one dude, and 26 go for 2 or maybe even 3. That way we're backfilling going forward. So I don't know. That's a good question. I'm kind of curious to see. It depends on what the talent looks like and what we feel like is good enough to move the needle forward.
Yeah, and so we talk about the talent and what Oklahoma has. I think a spot that intrigues me in this recruiting class outside of running back and what they take is wide receiver because you lose Jaden Nickens, but it doesn't feel like you really lost anything because your wide receiver room right now is so deep. And a lot of those guys are really young. So you're going to be able to return some of those guys. I mean, do you take 2 or do you say, hey, you know what? We'll probably take one more wide receiver, maybe a 5-star wide receiver. If that 5-star wide receiver decides to commit to Oklahoma, the wide receiver part really intrigues me because, again, like you said, they want to keep this a smaller class. And you see why, because Oklahoma's got problems right now where they have too many scholarship guys and they're going to have to process some people. And just for everybody watching, you're going to see people transfer out of this program that's going to make you scratch your head and go, why? Well, Oklahoma's got to process some dudes, and they got to process it in rooms where they've got a lot of talent. And although somebody might be talented and got a lot of upside, you've got to cut them loose. And I think you're going to see that probably in the wide receiver room, probably in the linebacker room. We were talking about that earlier. So, I mean, wide receiver, you lose Jaden Nickens. We've talked about Emmanuel Choice quite a bit. We've talked about, at least I've talked about Royal Capel. OU fans will tell you they want Andrew Marsh. Obviously, Caleb Cunningham had a really good time when he came in. So what is your thoughts? I want to get your take on the wide receiver because I think you only need to take one more. But I feel like if Emmett Jones gets his way, he's going to take 2.
Yeah, I think Emmett wants to keep that room as full as possible. And the good thing about those players is a lot of them are really athletes, so they kind of you can move them around based on what you need. But I actually agree with you on that it's probably best to just take one more. The room right now is very full, and we're going to be adding some more. We got 2 more coming this summer, and then we're going to be adding 2, if not 3 wide receivers to the class for next year. And so you're going to have a lot of dudes in there, and you're going to have to be a lot of people fighting for just the opportunity to really play. Now, granted, we'll be playing a lot of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity to get out there on the field. Question is going to be, how many wide receivers do you need in the class, and how many can you get in the PWO status? Like, we've got a lot of those as well. So that room is as super full as it is. Only taking one makes sense. I could see us shifting a lot more of that towards like offensive line or D line, just because you want to always build up with more fatties or whatnot. The question's going to be, how comfortable does Emmett Jones feel about his wide receiver room and people not leaving? That's really the biggest question. But the Jay
I'll
Nickens totally makes sense. He wants to play two sports, in which he could have done that here. I mean, for the most part, because we've got our wide receiver room so full, playing basketball wouldn't be too big of an issue. But the overlap is usually the biggest problem, especially on the basketball side.
Hey, well, our basketball team could probably use Jaden Nickens' services right away. But it's interesting because the wide receiver room is so deep, and Emmett Jones has done such a good job recruiting that room. A lot of people are missing this. A PWO by the name of Jacob Jordan, a 3-star wide receiver out of South Lake, has actually been showing out in spring ball. So that's how deep this wide receiver room is. A 3-star PWO is showing out over some scholarship dudes. That's impressive. But I think the biggest
I
needs for
mean, you got the
Oklahoma.
same thing out of Gavin Freeman.
Yeah, I mean, you got it out of Gavin. We don't talk about Gavin Freeman. People on this podcast don't. Yeah. Listen, people listening, they don't like talking about it because jet sweeps. It gives them too many bad memories. Gavin Freeman's got to do some other things outside of jet sweeps. Maybe return a few more punts. I'm interested to see where Oklahoma goes on the offensive line because that is. Last year was defensive line. This year's offensive line. The biggest need for Oklahoma. And it's because you lost your shining star in Caden Green. Obviously, you processed out quite a few guys that you thought you were going to process out. But Caden Green hurt you. That was one that Oklahoma definitely was not expecting to lose. And you probably expected him to go for the next 2 years. I don't think Bates has turned into the guy that they thought he would be at center, but you get a couple of young guys that have shown out so far in the spring ball, like Akankumi and guys like that you're excited for. But this is a big year because you've got 5-star offensive linemen, Michael Fasusi, Andrew Bababaloa, Lamont Rogers, Ty Haywood. Oklahoma's in it for all of those guys. The question is Oklahoma going to be able to close it? And I'm not saying Bill beat him, Bo, because when it comes to 5-star offensive linemen and defensive linemen in the NIL era, it takes more than just your offensive line or defensive line coach being able to come in and close the deal. The program as a whole has to be able to close it in the NIL space. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. You have to be able to pitch a competitive offer along with your assistant coach for that specific position to be able to go in there and say, listen, we can develop you. So Michael Fasusi, you see a lot of stuff trending towards Texas. You've heard my spill on it. I think it's Oklahoma. Ty Haywood's got the predictions in for Oklahoma. You've heard Alabama in the mix. Looks like they're retaining Caden Proctor, so maybe just pure hope they back off a little bit because maybe they'll be feeling good about themselves. And then you got Andrew Bababaloa. I think those are the three you really look at. What's your thoughts on the offensive line? Because I think this is probably the most intriguing position, just even with offers. Like, look outside 5 stars and high 4-star kids. There's some really good offers on the offensive line for Oklahoma.
I'd say when it comes to the line, and a lot of your viewers watch my channel, so you've heard me say this spiel on numerous occasions. I trust Beaton in Beaton we trust. Hence why I always have those shirts on when I'm talking about those coaches. I trust him and what he's going to do. And the reason is Ryan Fogier was probably the best example of just trusting Beaton. Dude, he picked Ryan Fogier, picked him up. He wasn't even ranked when we initially got him and got his commitment. He was 3-star on some sites. Most sites didn't have anything. And then all of a sudden, he's now top 80 for 247, and he's in the top 100 for on 3. And it was because he had only played football 1 year. They watched the tape and was like, oh, no, this kid's a little freakish for someone that hasn't played as long as he looks a lot more technically sound than we expected. And all he's going to do is keep moving up. He's probably going to end up top 50 at the end of the class. Like, he has shown absurd amount of talent, at a young age for someone that hasn't played that much. In which I'm seeing that a lot more when it comes to the O line and defensive line players. A lot of these kids are coming in playing this sport for the first time. So for me, I'm just like, oh, okay. As long as Beatingbo wants him, I'm totally in for it. So when it comes to like, hey, what I can totally see us getting him out of Denton Ryan. You know, we got Caleb Hicks at running back, who's a Denton Ryan kid. You got uh, Kevin Sperry, who's going down to go play at Denton Geyer. And so there's a good chance that, Haywood can be swayed to want to come up here and play. It sounds like he really enjoyed it. Plus, he's also a Bama fan. And if Bama continues to sniff around a certain way, he may end up there. But I do sense that there's a good chance that Haywood star. 5 stars are going to 5 star, and that's what 5 stars do. Um, I'm with you leaning on him being because I mean Haywood's a 5 star as well, but I'm leaning on Fasusi probably being more Oklahoma than he is everybody else. Just because all the articles I've read, just the way he's read about the relationship, and like you said, sure, in a lot of situations it's more the NIL does come into play, and there's more to it than just their like and admiration for said coach, right? But the other thing is that you can tell that this coaching staff always focuses on those players that they feel like really are here for the football. And if you get guys that are really here for the football, that care about football and want to be developed because of it, I can totally see Oklahoma going and snatching up and winning the battle with those two. Now, Babaloa, I don't know much about him. I need to go watch more film on him. But I mean, he's up there in Overland Park, Kansas. So you're competing with a lot of big boys when it comes to him, right? Now, the good thing is for Oklahoma in the recruitment of Babaloa is we have a lot of good relationships at the Kansas City Chiefs, right? We got a few Sooners that's on that roster. And he probably notices that. Like, oh, Champ's got a few Sooners on that line. Got a few Sooners on that roster. They had a few. They lose one and replace them with another, right? As they build them up and they start making money, they go ahead and replace them with another Sooner. And so if that's the case, I could totally see him seeing that's an opportunity. And I smell that Oklahoma's going to make some moves there.
Yeah, Andrew Babaloa, he's an impressive prospect, but I've said it multiple times. I think Michael Fasusi is the best tackle prospect in this class, the best prospect at tackle. Now, obviously, David Sanders, who Oklahoma's not in that recruitment. For some reason, they didn't offer the best offensive lineman in this class or the best ranked one. But Oklahoma sits in a good spot for Andrew Babaloa. That's the good thing, right? You know, when you hear people talk about the relationship that he has, and it seems like Oklahoma could win it. The problem is his services are going to be called by absolutely everybody, especially, and this is the thing, I don't think people understand this. It's going to be hard to land 2 5-stars, and here's why. When you land one, it takes one off the board. And a lot of people are going to know it's probably going to be hard to take that one from Oklahoma, which means everybody's going to go all in to keep the second one from going to Oklahoma. So landing one, not, I think, as hard as a challenge as people think. Landing 2, I think it instrumentally increases by at least double. So looking at the recruiting class for Oklahoma, it's definitely intriguing. You've got people coming up for the spring game, including Ty Haywood and Michael Fasusi. They'll be on campus together, which I think is big. And then you've got a couple of guys even coming up together for these official visits. I mean, Jay, I don't know if you've kept up with the spreadsheet or the document and looking at the guys that have slated, but just on the June 14th to the 16th, you've got Michael Fasusi, Ty Haywood, and Floyd Bucard, who is a defensive lineman, 4-star, by the way, on campus together. And then the 21st to the 23rd, which is going to be your party at the Palace, that's the day that you have them all slated. Max Granville, Landon Rink, Kamori Moore, Ryan Foje, Tory Blalock, Cooper Perry, and we know there's going to be more on campus. Oklahoma is, I think this is going to be the best class ever. I think they have a chance to try to go for top 2. I think there's a chance they could take number 1 if they get 3 or 4, 5 stars. And that's not that's not crazy to think about. I mean, Jonah Williams, we've talked about the offensive lineman, Caleb Cunningham. I think it's possible for Oklahoma. And you got guys that could rise to 5-star status. Crap. Now that Kevin Sperry's going to Texas, he's pretty much guaranteed to rise in the rankings, right?
I mean, you would hope, but now if he goes out there and shows out like Jackson Arnold did at Denton Guyer, in which Denton Guyer's done a fantastic job of developing quarterbacks, it's a very good chance that that does lead him to be the next one up as a 5-star. I could see him move up the rankings from that. Playing against Texas competition helps with that. Now, he doesn't camp enough, so that always hurts. If he gets out there to Elite 11 and shows out like Jackson Arnold did, then I think that that's where people would want to rank him higher. He's going to have to work on that. But at the same time, like I said, him going back to Texas, I think that's going to be a great thing for recruiting because he's going to end up at some camps and doing some activities, right? And that's going to be a great opportunity to get into people's ears and just chit-chat like, hey, join your boy. You be a quarterback. If he can pull that off, man, it'd be huge. I'll say that.
Well, I'll just say this. Kevin Sperry going out to Denton Guyer helps Oklahoma in 2027, where you've got 2 prospects that I think Oklahoma is going to go all in for that are must-lands. One in Zane Rowe, who's a defensive lineman, and then Kyron Haywood, who's also a defensive lineman. Now, I think Zane Rowe also plays tight end out at Denton Guyer, so he'll be catching some passes from Kevin Sperry, but he's probably going to be more of a defensive lineman towards the end of his high school career. I think that's kind of where you see his career ended up to land. So, yeah, I'm excited for the opportunity Kevin Sperry to end up back, and I think a lot of people understand at this point why he would go back to Texas. So I don't think we really need to touch on that, but I think it's going to be big for Oklahoma in terms of recruiting. Kevin Sperry has an opportunity to really get this class going, being in the state of Texas, because he's kind of close to a lot of these guys, and he's going to go up against some of this talent week in and week out. So, Jay, what's your final thoughts? Do you think Blalock sooner on March 29th?
Yeah, I'm all in on Blalock coming to Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's going to get themselves an offensive lineman very soon. Keep your eyes open for a local Oklahoma kid that just moved here from North Carolina. I think he's going to be one that's going to end up coming through. You'll see it soon, so keep your eyes open for that. But yeah, I'm sensing Blalock at Oklahoma.
All right. So if I have to hear it, Jay's next 3 commitments are Blalock. I can't think of the kid's name, but he's from Elgin, Oklahoma, and then Malik Hawkins.
I could see Hawkins being one. I actually think between him and Marion Robinson, see one of those 2.
Yeah, Marion Robinson's really good. I don't think that recruitment's going to last too much longer. I also like Marcus Wimberly. Nope. I'm curious to see if Oklahoma takes 2 safeties, knowing they're still in the mix for Jonah Williams, but also kind of knowing you might need an insurance policy if Jonah Williams doesn't pan out for Oklahoma. So, all right, Jay, go ahead and tell people where they can find you at, because you've got not 1 channel, but 2 channels now.
Yeah, you can find me on Fair Sports. That's where most of my college football content, OU content news goes in. My recruiting channel, Sooner or Later Sports, may slowly transition everything to that channel one day. I don't know. We'll see how we feel about it. But just find me wherever podcasts are downloaded and listen to, and on YouTube. Thanks for having me, PG, as usual. We'll hang out again soon.
Oh, yeah, no, thanks for coming on. Y'all make sure to go tune over there because, listen, he's got insiders that come on his podcast by the name of Colin Kennedy. So now we just need to get Josh McQuistion to come on your podcast as well. And then I think you'll have had most of the insiders on the community on your podcast. That'll be a lot of fun. All right, if you guys haven't already, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. YouTube wants you guys to watch one of these 2 videos, so make sure you guys tune in there.